Hi, Kathy.
Hello.
Hey, Gary.
Hey, I got behind Creeping Peter and
Yeah?
Slug going neck and
She'll
neck
slither
down
in.
the highway.
Oh, surely not.
Oh, gosh.
Where'd you get your water?
Somebody get over, you know? Can somebody get over? Like that.
That's where I think we're doing a disservice to our school system.
Something like just be aware I'm diabetic, so
Well,
snack.
you
I
be,
was warned this might
'cause
go
we
a
may
long
be
time.
here for a while.
Oh, no.
Didn't want to
yeah.
have a second spit.
She's never not. I wouldn't know what to
I hope you
do.
never judge me on her.
So they heard my Pokey the Wonder Slug come in.
Because any other day it can be different.
No, Larry, if he's...
Exactly.
But if you're going to pay somebody for 2 more years and you don't like them,
Yeah,
it's a waste of money.
that's true.
I don't think so. Agenda. Mr. Gilly tonight. You coming? Okay.
Sheriff's MOU, they can't release that, so that's why it's not.
Do what now?
The sheriff's MOU, the SRO MOU,
okay.
they can't release that. I asked about whether we
Okay.
can have anything in there.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Coffee County Board of Education's July 10th, 2023 monthly regular board meeting. And I'd like to welcome everyone, and we're going to start the meeting with a moment of silence before we get started. Thank you for this wonderful day and all you've given us. We are grateful to be able to congregate and work for our schools and our community. Guide us through the hard times and help us rejoice during the good times. Help us lead by following our hearts. Grant us understanding and patience. Help us to be mindful of all those in need and allow us to be providers and supporters of them. Again, thank you for all the blessings that you've given us. We are very grateful and truly blessed. In your name we pray. Amen. Mr. Prater Powell, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I would like to say that this is our first month where we are going live, and we're actually for the community. So any comments that are made by the public, we will have to come to the microphone in order for that to be for everyone to hear and see. So it'll take us a little bit of getting used to, but we'll get this worked out. So at this time, I would like to entertain a motion to accept our agenda that's been presented and at the same time pass the general consent items.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Crabtree and Mr. Cordell. Okay. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to remove the action item of director's contract from the agenda. And the reasoning is I want to make sure that we're in compliance with the Tennessee Code Annotated of notice.
Okay.
I want to make sure of that before we go further.
Okay.
because it says no school board shall extend the contract of a director of schools without giving notice of the intent to do so at least 15 days, calendar days prior to the scheduled meeting at which such action shall be taken. And I don't think we complied with that.
Okay, well, I did
Can you
announce it
verify
at the
that?
last meeting that we were going to do that. So I actually gave a 30-day, I'd have to count the days, but we did give a public notice at that point, at that meeting. Okay?
So that's
And-
considered a public notice?
Yes, because it is a meeting so.
Because
we
I
did
know
do
it
that.
wasn't on the website until after the evaluation committee meeting on July 7th, I think. So you're saying, and you're saying that we are in compliance? That is public notice?
I sent it to the media I sent you the email on that. I think it was June. So it was within 15 days and then he announced it. I can find my email.
I guess my thoughts are public notice, it's just announcing it's not on the website. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure that just the webs, I think we would have to look at what is the public notice. I think I've got that here. Well, if you want it to be moved, if we did give adequate notice, then there'll be,
It
need to be
wouldn't be
another,
moved, yes.
reason to
Right.
have it.
No, I said I didn't want this to be a moot
Okay,
vote.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because if we weren't in compliance with public notice, then that would be an invalid vote.
Oh, no, I can just find it on here. It's hard on my cell phone.
And I do remember you.
I did,
saying
because I
that.
did want to make
Because-
sure, because
but
we
I-
had an issue
I
before,
wasn't
and so
sure if
that's why
that
we
was
wanted
considered as public
to make
notice.
sure. I mean, that was a public meeting, the media was even here
That does
present.
count as public notice, but if, Ms. Westmoreland has also sent that to other avenues, so we'll give her a moment to look.
Might have to pull it up on the laptop.
You need to go get a Chromebook.
I can work here and pull it up. However, I do have this where, if you need this, where it says what is adequate public notice. It's in there.
Yeah, I concur. We sure need to make sure we're abiding with the law and not messing up on something.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask the question? It clearly states in the minutes of June the 12th that a motion, public notice was given by Chairman Gary Nestor that Dr. Lawson's contract will be presented at the July meeting. And that set of minutes are on the website, are they not?
Yes.
Does that not constitute a public notice as well?
I don't think they were on the website until just last Thursday.
The minutes?
What about being in the newspaper? Would that justify too? mean,
I'm
you're-
not sure what public notice, yeah, what,
Well, and that's the
what's the
reason, you're
definition?
saying
Yeah.
the website, so.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was announced at the last meeting, and we have that documented. That was in the minutes. I don't know when the minutes are posted to the website, but
They were posted, I believe, Thursday, they were posted, but it says that they do not have to be posted until 48 hours before the meeting. So I gave, because I did call TSBA, and I asked the lawyer, I wanted to make sure that I was giving complete, and she said, and I told her the different places that it was posted, and that we had announced it, and she said that I had went above and beyond on that. But I am trying to find this email to the media. Hold on.
My only concern was that there was 15 days public notice for the public.
It went to Thunder Radio, Manchester Times, and Vanessa Reynolds, who is the president of the CCEA. It went out on June the 22nd at 3:09.
that's plenty of time.
So there was no reason for the evaluation committee, the date for that meeting to be, be taken care of as far as the notice.
Now, I thought we were talking about the director.
We are, but what my thinking was that the evaluation committee was met on the 7th, I believe. And
Right, it was sent to the newspaper. And stuff.
okay, well, as long as y'all are okay, as long as
I
we're
can,
compliant
I can show
with
you
it,
my
that's
email
fine.
here. I mean, if y'all want to look at it, because it had the director's evaluation committee meeting and Dr. Lawson's contract on the same announcement. Can you verify that, Mr. Cordell?
26th,
20, right there.
or 22nd.
At
Yeah, 22nd,
Okay.
3:09.
3:09 PM.
And then it gave notice of the next board meeting on July the 10th.
I see no reason to pull it from the agenda.
Okay. All right. Any more questions or concerns?
I don't know if this is the appropriate spot to do that, but since Mr. Gilly is not here, I think something like this should really require the consideration of the full board. So I would like to, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to make to make a motion to do that, to delay it until we have a full board, but I would like to see that, because having a short member here, I think that, for a consideration like this, I think that's probably something that's important. So I'd like to see it, at least tabled until the next meeting.
He's not here.
But he elected to not be here. That's the thing. He elected to not be here. So I don't think that's a point, and plus, we still have a quorum. And so,
Mr. Nestor, if he wants to, if y'all approve the agenda as is, then if he wants to make a motion to postpone, then y'all would have to go through the whole process of voting for postponing or not. And if it doesn't pass, then you continue. If it passes, then it has to be postponed. But that would be after the entire agenda's already been passed to move forward with.
to be able to talk and discuss it. Okay? I agree with that. All right. Ms. Jennifer, we're going to start with you.
When exactly am I?
You're voting to approve the agenda and pass the
General consent.
general consent items.
Okay. Yes, aye.
Ms. Jones?
Uh-huh.
Aye.
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 Aye. The chair votes aye. That passes 8-0. Okay, action item number 1, director's contract.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could address you. As the chairman of the Directors Evaluation Committee, we met last week. And after careful deliberation, came to a consensus to make a recommendation, and therefore, as chairman of that committee, I move that we renew Dr. Lawson's contract for 4 years based upon the contract as it is presented in our minutes or in our documentation tonight.
Okay. We've had a motion to renew for 4 years Dr. Lawson's contract as presented. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Rose. Okay. So, does everyone understand what we're looking at or what we're talking about at this point? Okay.
Now, maybe you need to clarify that to everyone, that it's a renewal of contract. And what was the salary?
Salary is to be $144,095 in 12 equal monthly installments. And Dr. Lawson, which clause is the one that deals with the work schedule?
The work schedule is under the number 10, under
Vacation and holiday
professional leave.
Yeah, if you want to take notice of that the director is going to be placed on the same workday schedule as all the other supervisors, am I correct?
Central office
In the
supervisors.
central office, which causes him to lose 4 days of flexibility in time off. So basically, he loses 4 days of time off, but
Well,
That's
but
not
it
correct.
brings it, but
That's
it
not
brings it
correct.
to a standardized calendar for everybody in the central office.
when all is said and done, my former calendar and this 257-day contract calendar, the number of days that I must report to work are the same. The only difference is, as Mr. Crabtree said, the 4 days fewer flexibility. Right now, Coffee County Schools, I believe, has 17, 14. How many work calendars? Coffee County Schools has 17 work calendars. So that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to try to work on over the next year, is reducing that number. Mine, we have to have that discussion as part of this contract, because there is a work calendar that has one person on it, that's me. And if we're going to get rid of it, it has to be, the wording has to be changed in the contract. So I report to work the exact same number of days on the 257-day contract as I do my current work calendar, but it allows us to eliminate one calendar, and we can eliminate some of the other work calendars in the compensation committee. But it is brought up at this point because the only way to eliminate that particular work calendar is in my contract. So that's why it's up for discussion now. The board will hear other discussions later on in this coming school year as we try to work on the other calendars and reduce those numbers.
And other than those two changes, everything else in the contract pretty much remains the same. There's no other major changes.
What's the current salary?
Current salary is $127,000.
It would be 100 and, right now, if this does not pass, the current contract that I'm on schedules me for 137 and something. I don't know exactly. I don't remember that. I don't have that.
But his current contract right now says 127.
It's written before the step raises.
Yes, before the staff raises. Correct.
And just to let everybody know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he's under a 4-year contract. We've just completed the second year.
Right.
And so, so he still has,
2 more
regardless
years.
of what happened here, he has 2 more years on his current contract.
Unless we renew this one.
Unless
If
we
we
renew
renew
this.
this one, it becomes current right now, and he has 4 years from
From
now.
this point, yeah. So 2027. Okay?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is the motion is to renew the contract for 4 more years at the new increased salary of $147,000,
144,000.
$144,000, with no goals or anything to accomplish in that period from the school board, that we're okay with that.
There are some goals written into his contract, but those,
Mr. Crabtree, if you recall, at the meeting, you mentioned setting goals based upon that evaluation, and that would be covered under, if you look at number 2, duties, level A, and B, basically what Mr. Crabtree was proposing there is an annual performance agreement. Mr. Crabtree mentioned that at the last one. So this allows, the contract does address those goals, but those goals would be defined within that annual performance agreement. And it says, an annual performance agreement for director is mutually agreed upon. And so what would happen is those goals would be placed into that document upon the formation at the discretion of the Director's Evaluation Committee.
So our Director's Evaluation Committee will meet again fairly soon with Dr. Lawson, and we will start to work out a plan of improvement for him and assistance for him in that area as we go forward.
But we also need to understand as a board that a contract cannot be terminated for just not achieving a goal.
Well, I'll call your attention, let's see,
Well,
there is, hang on, it's gonna take me a moment because I've,
Well, you've got the renewal of contract, which says we can review the terms of this contract at any time. The annual performance evaluations, progress towards goals. That has a requirement in there.
it does say in number 14, performance evaluation. If you look down at the 5th line on that, failure by the director to perform any of the above mentioned goals or objectives described by the board in the director's annual performance agreement may be grounds for termination.
So yes,
that-
it
but
does
that-
address
But that
that.
document has to be formed within the executive committee and approved by the board.
And it should be part of the contract.
No,
ma'am,
it's
I don't
separate
think it
from the
ever has been.
contract.
It's mentioned in the contract, but it does not have to be attached to the contract.
Because that is that's a living document. Whatever we set forth in that is living. It will change from time to time based upon the needs of the school system.
Okay, so far we haven't changed anything.
Well, so far we don't have one. We never
We've had-
have had one.
We've never had a contract?
We've never had goals.
I know, that's my,
Now, for the first time, we're going to have them,
Finally.
finally.
Mr. Ballard, go ahead.
I would still like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting, until we have full board.
I will second his motion.
Okay, we've had a motion to table, and we've had a second.
Mr. Chairman, you have a motion on the floor right now. Can you have another motion inside of a motion?
Yes, we can have another motion. We have to deal with this motion first, correct? Yeah, we got
That is correct. Start stepping up. So your
Okay,
next,
all right.
your next motion that you're having to deal with now will be is it? you
Motion
said
to table.
Or to postpone?
Table is what he used, the term he used.
He used table.
Is that tabling for 1 month?
He didn't specify.
Well, table just puts it on the table for an indefinite amount of time until it's pulled back off the table, I believe. And like I say, your reason is because you just wanted all the board members to be here.
I think, yeah, on a
So we'll let it be
subject like
tabled
this,
until
I'm not
everybody's
comfortable
here
voting
the
on
next,
this
I mean,
without getting Mr. Gillies' input or the full board's
Right.
input, so that's.
so would it just be tabled until the next meeting that we had a
Yeah,
full
I
board?
think if we table it, then you have to have how many people to untable it?
His input.
I mean, I'm fine with changing the wording to postpone, if that is more palatable.
I don't mean to be tacky, but I live and die by my calendar. And I have every school board meeting up through next year on my calendar. So if you table this until next month and I'm on my vacation on the 8th of August, are you going to table it again until I come back?
Yes,
Well, yeah,
yes.
absolutely, because we'd want your vote too.
I'm here tonight because I want you to have my
I'm here
vote.
tonight because I'm ready to vote.
Me too. I don't
This-
expect you
this
to
is
table it
important.
because I'm not here.
Yeah.
I
I'll
wouldn't
make a
expect
point
that.
to be here.
And he was able, if it would have been a cause like he missed it for work, or a family emergency, or military service, he could Skype in and participate.
I understand.
All right, so we've had a motion and a second to table this, and we're going to vote on that. Ms. Jones?
No.
No.
No,
Oh, I said the wrong thing.
no.
Not table it,
That's correct.
Table it.
table. I vote that we table.
So that's a yes.
Yeah, and I,
Yes.
No.
Yes.
you can't change, I meant to,
So you meant to
I
vote?
meant to table it.
Okay, so you would vote yes to
Yes.
table. and
Sorry.
The, and I vote no, so it's 4-4.
So the motion to the table would fail in that circumstance.
Because it did not have a majority. Okay? More questions about the contract or specifics?
I have a few.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Ballard.
I'm not on the committee that did the contract, but there are a few things, just based on input from the public. One was to keep the salary as is, and then this would be under compensation, and then just as we're doing with the regular increases that the teachers are getting. Under section 6, professional dues, I have a question. What organizations does Dr. Lawson belong to, and how often does he attend to promote the school system? I'm not clear on that. I mean, are we doing like Rotary Club and stuff? I mean,
Yes, sir. The membership is Tennessee Organization of School Directors. That's called TOSS. I am an active member of that, and that is where I receive a lot of my professional development and that kind of thing. We have meetings in September and February.
okay.
Those are the larger conferences. I am a member of the Chamber of Commerce as defined here. I make appearance at chamber luncheons. I have spoken at chamber luncheons and that kind of thing. Civic Club, the one that I belong to is Rotary. And so that one, and then one additional professional association selected by the director, that is the AASA, the Association of Superintendents. For the that's the National Superintendents Association. So those are the groups that I belong to.
Okay, thank you. And then number 11, expenses. I guess I read through this and I didn't quite understand. Typically, I'd like to see where you get reimbursed for mileage and then either actual expenses or per diem. So I don't quite get the $500 plus the additional mileage and expenses. That's kind of, I don't quite get that.
Basically, that was in even my predecessor's contract, and it just came in. What it does is it simplifies basically any mileage that I have inside the county or any county that touches me. If I go to a meeting in Franklin County, if I go to a meeting in Murfreesboro or whatever, that is included within that allowance. And if I travel outside of the adjoining counties, then I turn in a mileage sheet and that kind of thing. It is just basically right there. It simplifies a lot of processes. Now, I will say this, there are some districts that I did not ask for an increase to that because I think that is still adequate. There are some districts that will hide extra compensation in that line. There are districts that are smaller than Coffee County and have fewer schools and have a higher mileage allowance. And it's probably a way to put compensation in there. I do not believe, while 6,000 wear and tear on my personal vehicle and my fuel and that kind of thing, maybe 4 years ago 6,000 was extra. I don't think it is now, but I think it's fair, and that's why I did not ask for an increase on that allowance. But that's what that is. It has been in my predecessor's contract as well as mine. There's no change I'm proposing there.
I think the current mileage rate is 65.5 cents a mile, so that's usually taking into account both wear and tear, insurance, gas, and those types of things. And you know, I guess I'm not familiar with any contracts that have you know, a fixed amount rather than just everything I've ever worked as a consultant has always been mileage plus expenses. And
Manchester City's 5,000, I
Is-
believe,
there
and
is-
Grundy County's 9,600. So, and then some of them do provide a district vehicle. I believe Warren County does.
I will say this, Warren County provides a district vehicle, Bedford County has a travel allowance, Grundy County has one, Manchester City has one, Franklin County and Tullahoma just do a straight reimbursement.
But they're all a little different.
They're all a little
and-
different with different amounts. So it looks like of the districts I contacted, about half of them have this same thing.
okay, thank you for that. I mean, yeah, that's not something I'm familiar
I
with.
understand.
So, number 14, performance evaluation. You know, this kind of cuts both ways. I'm not comfortable with the wording here because it says in here, failure by the director to perform any of the above-mentioned goals or objectives described by the board in the director's annual performance agreement may be grounds for termination, but we don't have any real standards for that. So that's kind of a little uncomfortable on the board is, you know, if you know, and just take, for example, this last time around, we recently talked about your performance review, we talked about the board's self-evaluation. In both cases, we had some substandard items on the results that came back. You know, now I would expect the board should be able to address those in our strategic plan, but we didn't have anything, and maybe that's what Mr. Crabtree was talking about is, you know, kind of a, you know, we have something over here that's substandard where you might have gotten a 2, and instead of just saying, okay, you got a 2 on your evaluation, we're going to fire you, we really need to have some intermediate steps there that I think would define what those are. And maybe, you know, Mr. Crabtree can shed some light on that, or you can, Dr. Lawson, on how we're going to evaluate those things, because we kind of go one way or the other here. Either you're doing great or you're fired, you know, and that's kind of the way I read this, and it's kind of like, that's, yeah.
In the director's evaluation meeting, what we brought up, or what I brought up, is the point that we want to take the evaluation and use it as a tool to help develop Dr. Lawson. There are areas where he's very strong. How do we support him in those very strong areas so that he maintains or gets better in those? And some areas that he was candid about being a little weaker in, we develop a plan of how we help him to improve to be able to handle that. That's what this discussion's after, post this, whatever happens tonight happens. We sit down with, as the committee with him and work out the plan, and then we bring the plan back to the board to see as to, okay, here's the plan that we see to help him get stronger and be better and be a better leader in that area for us. But it's as I said, it's a living thing, because as he improves, other things may be moved in, and because that becomes less of a priority, other things may come in that are a priority, and we deal with those. still under the understanding that the 16 question evaluation that we used this year, we used for the very first time. So it's all a learning experience for us as a board and as a committee, and it's a learning experience for him also. So we have to be somewhat flexible and understanding in it, but we put together a plan of things, a plan of action for him. And we do that. And then next year, hopefully by the time we get to next year, we can possibly have the plan ready before the evaluation, and we look at the plan as part of the evaluation of him. And then the next year we move on with maybe a whole new set of goals or a whole new set of things, but still it's a living, active process. It's not a static thing that, okay, here are 18 things you need to do, and here are 18 things that we're going to do to help you. And it's static. It doesn't change. That's been the problem most of the time, is most of these kind of things have been static when they should have been dynamic. So we're trying to move to a more dynamic system with it as we go. But it's going to take some time for us to develop that. Ms. Jones and I had some pretty good discussions last week about how we get there from here. And Mr. Parsley also had some very good comments in that same area. And we still understand that schools don't operate like businesses do, unfortunately. So that's where the learning process comes in for people like me and others that haven't been in a school system thing. So yeah, but that is what we're talking about here in this wording is. And it's not to say, okay, if he doesn't meet this, we fire him immediately, but if it's consistently not being met, if he's missing dates or this or that, if it's obvious, then that's a grounds for dismissal, obviously. But other than that, it's all a work in progress right now.
Mr. Crabtree?
Yes.
If I may. In number 14, there is no change. That is the same whether this renewal is granted or not, because if the renewal is voted down, it reverts back to the existing contract, and that language right there has not changed at all. So what Mr. Crabtree is talking about, that annual performance agreement that he proposed development and gave kind of an outline of how to develop at the last evaluation meeting, that will move forward regardless of what happens today, because that language is in both contracts. So that's...
And I appreciate Mr. Crabtree's explanation there. And I guess what I'm getting at is we had, a review that had some deficiency areas, just like the board did. And, I would expect the board would work on their deficiencies and we'd have a plan for that. And we haven't, but there's nothing in place now for any of the deficiencies in your review or we're working on that, or that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here is there are some areas that, where you might have gotten a 2 or somewhere around there that's probably subpar, and there was no corrective action plan that we've seen on that, and maybe that's what Mr. Crabtree's talking about.
And that would be, the title for that is the annual performance agreement, and that's what Mr. Crabtree's talking about.
Okay, so, but there's nothing in place right now that's looking at those and...
No, because the 16 question form we used, we've never used before, so we didn't have anything to base it on. Now we have something to try and work with, so we'll grow from here.
If I could point out something else too, when we talk about a strategic plan, a major component of that strategic plan is the development of your personnel. And while we may not be elbow deep in developing classroom teacher skills, he's our employee, and it's our responsibility to provide professional development for him. And that's something that will fall under that whole umbrella of a strategic plan with little boxes we can check and, how far did we get on this? That's, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't want us to see, looking at the superintendent's evaluation over here in isolation. It's got to be part of that whole thing for it to flow. Does that make sense?
Thank you, and I understand that. I'm just saying that we're saying right now that this is the first year we've done this evaluation, and so we're just kind of, essentially setting that aside and waiting till next year before we do anything.
No, we're not.
Okay.
We're going on from this point forward, we go on
Okay,
in trying to develop the plan, because we couldn't develop the plan before we had the evaluation, obviously. So now we have to develop the plan.
I guess I would like to see some wording like that in the contract, because the way it's written now, it sounds like either you meet your goals or we're gonna look at terminating you, and that's, there's gotta be an intermediate step there that kind of
Well,
says, okay.
obviously, the intermediate step is developing the goals, which we haven't had a
Yeah.
chance to do yet.
Right, but that is not in the contract, so that's kind of, I'd like to see something like that in the contract, so that's.
But it does just say may be, does not say will be grows.
Right, but,
There's a big
it's-
difference with that.
Yeah, but it triggers the discussion and so I'd like to see kind of an intermediate step between those two. And my last point, and I know I'm getting kind of long-winded here, but I made a bunch of notes here, so, in number 15, and I realize this has been around for a while, but I haven't, so, so that's kind of, my point is that, it says the Board of Education collectively or individually shall promptly refer to the director all criticisms, complaints, and suggestions called to their attention relative to the director or the school district for the director's study and recommendation. I'm fine with that, and I've kind of learned, as I've gone along here to try and refer things to you. But what is missing there in my mind is there's no obligation to report back to the board on any of these things. And I would like to see something, and probably this, I feel more strongly about this than probably anything else that is in here, is if we get complaints from the public or opinions, and I bring it to you, that there be some obligation to report back. And I gotta say, you've been really good on that.
I was gonna ask, have I ever failed to get back to you on anything you brought?
There's been a few times, and I just kind of take it to getting lost in the shuffle. I mean, we get a lot of email, so I, and I haven't really, but it would be nice to kind of formalize that a little bit and get back, either whether we report on it.
Well, can I ask you, the wording that says the director or school district for the director's study and recommendation. If it's his study and recommendation, isn't that him coming back to us with something? The recommendation is coming
I
back
guess
to us
that's
with something.
not necessarily the way I read it, but it would be nice if there was
That's the
some
way I
kind of
interpreted it
reply
anyway.
within 5 days or at the next board, by the next board meeting, or something like that. That's really, because I think that's important. I mean, I get parents contacting me all the time, and I do my best to pass everything along to Dr. Lawson, and even some things I think are probably trivial, but it's in the contract, and pass it along. So just some kind of formalizing that a little bit.
If we just said for the director's study and recommendation back to the board and or board member,
I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, well, that obviously, okay, hang on just a minute.
And
For the director's study and
like I say, I think you've been
recommendation
good about that, but I just,
back
like,
to the board and or, depending upon who brought it to his attention.
Would you give the
Board member.
recommendation to?
Now, but it would require, it would require an amendment if we're gonna add that. And so that's because there was a motion made in a second to accept this contract as is.
Yep.
If we were gonna add wording to it, then it would either have to take the form of a friendly amendment, which means the one who made the motion and the one who seconded accepts those additional words, or it would, if they did not accept it as a friendly amendment, then it would move to that process. So I guess I will defer to Dr. Nestor, because what I believe what Mr. Ballard has requested is adding the words on number 15. It says and suggestions called to their attention relative to the director of the school district for the director's study and recommendation. And then to clarify what recommendation is, we would add the words back to the board and or board members. So that means the recommendation that's already in there, as Mr. Crabtree said, that's the language in there that says I'm going to respond, but we're going to clarify it and say the recommendation back to the board and or board member.
I don't see that as being part of the contract. I see that as being a part of the evaluation that we do on him, because to me, that comes down to communications. You know, do we have good communications there? Does he communicate effectively with board members? And that, I think that's part of the improvement plan, or the plan to address areas for growth, rather than having to be in the contract like that.
So are you suggesting removing section 15 entirely?
No, sir, I'm not suggesting removing. I'm saying that the way it is written, again, it is written in such a way that if there is a concern, if we've got people calling us and we're going to him and he's not doing do-wah-diddy about it, that needs to show up in his evaluation.
What if that gets dropped somewhere in that evaluation? What if no one brings that up or whatever, but this just sort of gives it, I sort of see what he's saying. If you've got a parent that calls you, wants some sort of response back, I've done that. I've probably bothered him 2 or 3 times after I've had a complaint or something, concern. I think this just gives it, I actually agree with Mr. Ballard on that I don't see a issue with that.
My only question is, if we say for his study and recommendation, who do you think he's going to make the recommendation to? He's got to be to either the board or the individual board member. I mean, otherwise, he hasn't made a recommendation. So the wording of as it reads to me tells me he's going to come back to me or the board or somebody about this. And I don't think it needs to be itemized down to specific things, but if you want it that way, it can be considered.
Mr. Chair, at this point, I mean, Mr. Ballard, are you making a formal request for that amendment, that language?
Yes.
Okay, so basically we need to find out if it's a friendly amendment, and if not, then we'd move to a second, but I defer to you, sorry.
From my side, I see no reason to add the wording, so therefore I would not be in favor of it.
Okay.
But I'll listen to it as an amendment, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so we've had a motion to add that. Mr. Ballard. Do we have a second to add that language?
You asking for a second?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Cordell. So I think we've discussed it, so we will, go ahead.
Are we gonna, what are we voting on the
We're
amendment?
voting whether to add that language into
Oh, okay.
15.
And again, I will clarify. Number
Board member,
15,
yeah.
where it says, for the director's study and recommendation period, the amendment would change it to, for the director's study and recommendation back to the board and or board member, period. And that's the amendment as it stands right now.
Okay, does everybody understand?
We're just voting on the amendment.
We're just voting on the amendment, that's it. Whether to add that into the contract that has not been approved. Okay, it doesn't do anything but put it in there. Okay? Miss Rose?
No.
No.
Yes.
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 No. Passes 5-3. Okay, so that will be put in there. Dr. Lawson, so your contract ends in 2 years. Tell us the advantage that you feel. Why do you want the additional 2 years? What is going to help our system? What are the advantages to going ahead and renewing your contract to giving you 4 years from this point instead of 2 years?
Okay, well, the reason for this is based upon my experience the first time I had a renewal. The first time I had a renewal, I waited until there was 1 year left on my contract. It didn't occur to me to do it at 2 years. I waited until there was 1 year, and then one thing was brought up as a delay, another thing was brought up as a delay, and then we hit September, and we couldn't do it in September because the appointment of the chair and the director's contract are both required to be the first thing. And what happened was we made it all the way to October of my last year before my contract was renewed. Had my contract not been renewed, more than likely after this job, I will either go back to the classroom or I will retire. Right now, probably retirement is what I would be looking at. I would rather, by the time I hit October, I would have had 8 months to prepare for a very large financial change in my life. And so when that happened, and it just kept getting delayed through different tactics, we ended up with it in October. I decided I needed to see what others had done. So I pulled out my predecessor's contracts. And I noticed that each time that my predecessor got down to 2 years, she asked for a renewal to go to 4 years. And I thought, well, that would solve it. There is the former director of schools at Tullahoma, Dr. Dan Lawson, has been a mentor for me at different times in the past. And so what I did was I reached out to him and I said, hey, here's what happened. What do you recommend? And he says he recommended the directors that when they get to 2 years, they extend out to 4. That way you avoid that same circumstance that what happened in my first go round. Now, if we waited until next year is a board election. There is a state law that you cannot negotiate a director's contract a certain number of days before and after a board election. And so I could see where if I wanted to have this discussion next spring, there would be some people that an argument could be made, and there could be some validity to that argument. Hey, the board's going to change drastically. We need to wait until after the board election to do that. And I know that, I don't know, but I feel very confident there would be some that would make that argument. So then if the election's in late summer, early fall, and then you wait the 30 days after the election or the proper amount of time, I don't know if it's 30 or 15, but you wait the period of time after the election. By the time you get to the negotiation of my contract, I'm into the fall of my last year. And again, still facing that whole thing of only having, if the renewal fails, I would only have a matter of months to prepare for retirement. If it fails here, that tells me that I've got 2 years to prepare for my retirement. And so now, I will also argue that this will also provide some continuity for the district. Obviously, if the renewal does not pass, there's no reason to believe that it would pass sometime later. You've seen my write-up on what's been accomplished. I can't possibly hope to accomplish more in the next year than I've accomplished in the last 4. And so there's no reason for me to expect that it's going to be any different next year. And I can tell you that the conversations will start, if the renewal doesn't happen, the conversations start tomorrow about who's the next person. And there you are, and that may be the direction the board goes, but I believe for continuity purpose for the district and definitely for me. But that's the reason that I'm requesting it, is because my first experience with this was it just repeatedly got delayed until I was down to 8 months left on my contract, and I can see the same thing happening next year, and so that's just where we are. And so, and by having, why am I not asking for 3 years? I can tell you, if I went for 3 years, that puts us in the same spot that if I'm not renewed, the board would have to be hiring a director of schools on it a year that there's a board election. So an even number of years ensures that this falls on odd numbered years, and board elections fall on even number years. And so that's a summary of why I'm pursuing the contract renewal at this time.
Ms. Jones, you had something a little earlier?
Yeah, I have a concern. I know the director's evaluation was, what, 3.47 out of a 5? Is that correct? Anyway,
Look that up, but
Anyway, a teacher cannot be granted tenure unless they score a 4 out of a scale of 5. And I feel like that we should look at your evaluation next year and look at renewing your contract. And because I think that the directors should not be treated any differently than our teachers.
that evaluation is a different evaluation than the evaluation estimate that we set up for him. So I don't think you can correlate those together.
It's
That you can
still
number-
the same scale.
And ma'am, if 4 other board members agree with you, then this renewal will fail, and it can be taken up again next year if the board wants.
What do you see as your vision in the next 4 years if you're renewed for our school system? That's what's important, not a teacher's retirement, not your retirement. What's important is how we're going to move our school system forward and be proud of it. And we're proud now, but even prouder of what our school system is accomplishing.
Ma'am, my plan for the next 4 years is to continue the work that you have seen in that list for the last 4. I would like to continue to make more of a difference. I will say this, the last 4 years, there's been more of a difference made in compensation than in any other 4-year period that I can find in Coffee County history. I will say that the improvement of facilities, I'd like to see that continue. What would we like to do? Mr. Shores and I've already visited. I'm going to say within the next 12 months, we have to start discussions with the commission about updating East Coffee Elementary and Hickerson Elementary. I would like to see a continued staff development and that kind of thing that we have already started at our youngest levels with letters training. I would like to see that continue and that kind of thing. But basically, I've provided board members with a document showing all that's happened in the last 4 years. What I see for the next 4 is a continuation of that, and that's just where we are. Now, obviously, more specific things, Ms. Rose has offered to develop a more specific 5-year plan and have certain goals and get feedback from different stakeholders and that kind of thing. And those more specific things can be defined in that 5-year plan. They can become a part of my director's annual performance agreement that Mr. Crabtree has proposed. And so that's what I see. But all I can say is what do I expect to do in the next 4 years? I expect to do exactly what you've seen before, and I would argue that the body of work that I have produced would justify another 4 years. But of course, that's my opinion.
Other questions, concerns, comments?
Call the question.
Well, let me make one statement. I'm going to make one before we. I just encourage everybody to look at the whole picture. I know some probably do not want to renew it. Some are absolutely for it. Some are absolutely against it. But I guess I'm looking at our system, and we're all anxious to have a 5-year plan for him to, and we're going to spend a lot of money to get together multiple times as a board to try to develop this plan. But yet we're not giving him the support that says you're going to be here 5 years. We want a 5-year plan, but we're only going to give you 2. And so I think we have to be open-minded, and if we want to accomplish these things, one of the ways to do that is to renew the contract. I think the bottom line is he's really wanting the contract renewed for the years, and there is a raise in there. I think it's 4 to 5%, which is a raise. I'm glad anytime we can give any of our educators or anybody in our system a raise. So I'm always not, I don't want to be overactive on that, but still, I want this to be a system where you can come in and do what you want and be rewarded if you give the effort. But anyhow, I just wanted to make that little statement. I would like us to have a vision down the road for where we want to go as a school. Okay? Well, if there's no more comments, we can go ahead and go to the vote. All right. So, to make everything totally clear, we are voting on action item number 1. This is to renew Dr. Lawson's contract for 4 years, as presented for $144,095, with the modification that we accepted in item number 15. And that is what we're voting on, with it modified. All right. Mr. Crabtree, your vote. There's a yes. Mr. Cordell?
Nay.
Mr. Ballard?
No, I think Mr. Gilly should be here and have input. I'm voting no.
Mr. Parsley?
Aye.
Ms. Jennifer?
I would like to revisit this next year, so I'm going to say no.
Ms. Jones?
I would like to revisit it. No.
Okay. And Ms. Rose?
Aye.
And the chair votes yes, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4 yes and 4 no, correct? Okay,
That's
so
correct.
it does not pass.
The renewal fails.
Okay, it fails. Action item number 2. SRO MOU. Dr. Lawson, you want to speak on this?
Yes, sir. As the SRO MOU, we have had SROs in our schools for the duration of Mr. Parton's tenure as sheriff. And so what this is, there has been some additional state funding that has been provided to sheriff's departments for SROs. Now, the local sheriff's department has picked up the entire cost on their own to provide these and that kind of thing. I mean, the school district provides the space and some computer access and that kind of thing, but the bulk of the cost is borne by the sheriff's department. Then, as part of this recent safety money from the state, then there has been additional funds provided to the sheriff's department for SROs. Now, part of that, I believe the sheriff's plan is when staffing is available and trainees are brought forward, he can then, I think his desire is to add staff at both middle school and at the high school. And I can defer to Sheriff Parton, he's here tonight. But I can also say that that MOU is stamped as a confidential document, not for public release. It is basically part and parcel of the safety plan. Now, Sheriff Parton and his staff have looked it over. I have looked it over with my staff. There is nothing in the new MOU that we don't already do. So it will not change any of our practices or anything like that. But since it is stamped as a confidential document, that's where we are. That's why it's not included. That's why we're kind of limited on any questions I can answer. I did put an email that if a board member wanted to see it, swing by and talk to me before the meeting, and I'd be glad to show it to them. There's nothing in there that's super secret, but since it is classified as part of the safety documents, it is not something that we had necessarily discussed. Sheriff Barton, is there anything that you'd like to add, sir? Oh, I forgot, microphone.
Thank you for reminding us, Sheriff. You're on your game.
I chair a state board, so I'm very familiar with the process. Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we have an MOU in place with the district. We have for several years. Basically what happened was when the creation of this funding came from the state, they wanted a unified MOU that looked the same for all 95 counties and all municipalities that have school districts with SROs. They wanted them all to look the same. They wanted the language to be the same. Basically, in the MOU, it basically says that they're law enforcement officers. They're going to be there to do law enforcement duties. They're not employees of the school district. They're not janitors. They're not teachers. They're deputy sheriffs and police officers. That's basically what it says. There's a little caveat in there about office space and this and that. Those are things that you have already provided. We're doing a great job. You've done a great job with our SROs, and we just don't want to hold up $750,000 because of a signature, and that's all it is. Department of Safety is going to be handling these funds. This project was done with the governor and some other members of law enforcement and some educational folks after the Covenant shooting. This money is coming directly through the Department of Safety and is going directly to the sheriffs and to the police departments. They came up with a formula of there's 1,830 something schools, public schools in the state of Tennessee. They took the salaries of the police and sheriff's offices from across the state and divided it out by the 1,800 and some odd schools, and they came up with $75,000 per school. So since we have 10 buildings or 10 campuses, we are getting $75,000 times 10, which is $750,000. Most of this money will be used to supplant the salaries of our current SROs. There will be some equipment bought for them that has not been done in the past. There are going to be some equipment that's duly needed to update for them, and each one of those will be done as an individual. We kind of have to keep up with each school as its own program. But it's a very simple process, and we're going to try to make this as flowing and easy for county budgets, the county commission, and also for you. But we would greatly appreciate your support. We'd greatly appreciate you allowing Dr. Lawson to put that signature on there so that our county does not miss out on $750,000 free dollars from the state funds to come here and help us pay for SROs. Thank you. And I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Don't go anywhere.
Yes, sir.
Let's get a motion in a second.
I so
Lawson,
moved.
does this come with your?
This comes with my recommendation,
Okay,
yes.
so you heard the director's recommendation to accept the SRO MOU that, and
I
I'd
so
like to
moved.
entertain a motion. Mr. Cordell, and
Second.
second, Ms. Jennifer. Now, any questions for the sheriff or Dr. Lawson, either one?
Not a question, but a comment. I'm so proud and appreciative of what our law enforcement people are doing, and the sheriff department with the advances been made over the years and their commitment to safety and whatever, and I want to thank you for your service.
Also, I will make an additional comment. It's probably been said I made it in the law enforcement committee or some engagement somewhere, but right now we have one SRO per campus except for the call center. And I know there has been many times of people have mentioned about somebody at the call center. The call center is a sensitive issue, but it is a center with very capable staff, and you have a lot of maintenance folks on the premises, and a lot of strong-willed, strong-minded, strong-bodied people there. We've never really have in the percentages, do we have trouble at the cost center? But moving forward, our plan is to put an additional SRO at the high school, an additional SRO at the Coffee Middle School, and also an SRO based out of the cost center that will be a roving SRO. So if we have another SRO out with some kind of sickness or whatever it may be, just like school teachers, they get sick and sometimes we need a substitute. And we want to base them out of the alternative school to kind of be the rover to do that. So there will be 3 additional for a total of 13 if our plan goes through.
Have you chosen them yet?
Ma'am.
Do you know who they are yet?
No.
Have you picked them out?
Well, tentatively, I have 2 that started the academy this morning that have been working and getting trained up at the high school. And the additional for the middle school, I do not know yet. So we're actively recruiting. If you know of anybody that's interested, we would entertain talking to them. All of the sheriffs and all the police chiefs, when we're in our meetings, that is, coming up with the money and the positions right now is not a problem. The problem is finding the qualified people to be able to handle that, and that's going to be a problem throughout this process. SROs are not law enforcement in general is not a popular career to get into, and sadly, we're losing a lot of people because of today's issues in society. But we're just going to make the best of it, and we're going to continue to have it. We're lucky to have the 10 that we have, and we just want to build upon it and stay positive and encouragement. And I feel like we will get it done, and hope it works out.
Sure, but I'm appreciative of the program and that you're doing and your management of it. But I always have to ask, whenever there's a big chunk of money, what are the strings that are attached to it?
Well, the strings attached is the commissioner of safety has directed all of us, don't go to buying stupid stuff. It's lined out and it's pretty much in detail. Vehicles, weapons, or things that is needed in the setting there for security and safety. It's some generalized stuff. The majority of it, Mr. Ballard, is set forth for the salaries. I wished I could tell you that $75,000 per SRO was not enough. I wished I could tell you that. But it's not. We will probably have some monies left over because of the pay rate of our SROs. So whatever is left over at the end of the fiscal year will be returned back to the state coffers. We will not have any choice but to send it back. But with the way that Chief Watkins and I are looking at doing this, there's some supplanting there that will be good for the state comptroller's office, will be good for the auditors, and good for revenue and good for safety. So we're going to be straight across with it, and this is reoccurring money. I don't know for how long. I feel that it's going to be reoccurring under this governor's administration, but we could go into the next legislative session and a group of people jump up and say, we've got a problem. We need to spend $140 million on a mega site, and we don't have it for SROs. I mean, that could happen. That's just where we're at. So we're gonna look at this 1 year at a time and see how it goes. And then next year, if they want to do it again, we're going to welcome it, and we'll be back here to ask them to renew our MOU and stay in compliance with them. But we're really excited about it, and we've been very blessed to have this funding come, because it is going to, a portion of it is going to offset some of our deficit that we have in this upcoming budget, which is getting whacked away every day that we prolong passing a budget. But for some reason or another, we get revenues that show up every day that makes that deficit get lower. But we're really excited about it, and we greatly appreciate your support.
Thank you very much. All right. So at this time, we're going to vote to approve action item number 2, the SOR MOU. And Mr. Cordell, you're up.
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. That passes 8-0. Action item number 3, the annual agenda. Dr. Lawson?
Yes, sir. This is just a process. It occurs yearly. You can see before you, if you've pulled it up, you'll just see basically these are the things that we address in the month that we address them in. As it says at the bottom, it's not an inclusive list. This is the vast majority of things, but there will be other things that come up. Items are subject to change, and items could take place outside a regular board meeting. Just because it's on here, it could be a part of a retreat. It could be part of a work session. It could be part of a board meeting. But this basically is the agenda and the timing of when we do each of these items. And this is a formal process of approving the agenda for the next year.
This annual agenda comes with your recommendation.
It does.
Heard the director's recommendation to accept the annual agenda. I'd like to open the floor for a motion.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Crabtree, Mr. Cordell. Any questions on the agenda? Hearing none, Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes 8-0. Action item number 4, bus surpluses. Mr. Shores, or?
I'm gonna let Mr. Shores handle this one.
Yeah, we have two buses that are rolling off according to the state requirements. We just need to surplus them so we can sell them and try to recoup what we can get out of them.
Don't we have about 68 buses, I think? 65, 68? That's what we had 4 or 5 years ago.
No, it's not. I want to say 45-ish, but don't hold me to that.
Well, Tim Morris had told me that 4 or 5 years ago, 65 or something, I don't know.
Dr. Lawson, this surplus in these buses does come with your recommendation.
It does.
Okay, you've heard the director's recommendation to surplus bus number 0405 and 0310. I'd like to open the floor for a motion. Mr.
Second.
Cordell, Mr. Crabtree. Now, you got any more questions about that, Mr. Cordell, the numbers or anything? Okay, we're voting on action item number 4 to surplus the 2 buses listed. Mr. Parsley.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes 8-0. Action item number 5, differentiated pay plan. Dr. Lawson.
This is another item that I will turn over to Mr. Shores.
Okay.
Okay, differentiated pay plan is a law that was pulled together several years ago, and the way we do our differentiated pay plan is compensating those employees that are taking on leadership roles within our schools. And this is a yearly thing that we have to do and get approved by the board. And this is the same pay plan, differentiated pay plan as we did last year that was approved. And so I'm bringing it to the board for approval this year as well.
Okay. This differentiated pay plan comes with your recommendation, Dr. Lawson?
It does.
Okay. You've heard the director's recommendation to accept the 2023-24 differentiated pay plan. I'd like to open the floor for a motion.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Cordell, I'm sorry, Mr. Crabtree, wasn't it? And Ms. Rose. Questions on this?
The numbers in here, do those take into account the adjusted compensation plan we approved a while back? So,
Okay, these numbers actually, they're based on, the way we've got it set up is each school gets a base number of teachers. I believe it's 2. I don't have that information in front of me. And then it's based on how many students they have per school, and it's $500 increments. Now, some of the schools actually broke that $500 increment into a smaller amount because they had more leaders that they need to compensate for different reasons. So it really does not tie to the pay scale in that sense at all. Does that answer your question
I think so. I thought we talked about something like this when we did the compensation adjustments, but maybe I'm
No,
not
sir,
remembering
this
correctly.
this is separate from the pay scale. We adopted a new pay scale for certified.
Okay.
And so that's a separate thing. This is a fixed allotment, so
Okay.
it's a fixed dollar amount for each person based on the role they fill at that school. Please understand, these are leadership roles that every school has had for probably as long as there's been schools with multiple teachers in it. It's just that now we can use these differentiated pay plan monies to compensate those teachers for those roles. You can see it's, in most cases, it's just a few $100s, but at least it's something to compensate them for their time. So this is separate from the overall pay scale.
Sure, I'm all for this. I just, wasn't sure where it fit into other stuff. Okay.
More concerns or questions? If not, we're going to vote for approve action item number 5, the differentiated pay plan. Ms. Jennifer?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. That passes 8-0. Action item number 6, civil rights and bullying compliance report. Dr. Lawson, you want to speak
This
on?
is one I'm going to turn over to another supervisor who spends a lot more time with this, Dr. Cornelius.
Yes, it's just a required report that we have to provide to the state every year, and it is generated out of the Student Information System database. I pull it after the school year closes and just tally it up, and it's very straightforward. And you have it in front of you. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them for you.
Okay. And this civil rights and bullying compliance report comes with your recommendation to approve this, Dr. Lawson?
It does.
Okay. You've heard the director's recommendation. I'd like to open the floor for a motion.
So moved.
Ms. Jones?
Second.
Second, Mr. Cordell. Questions?
So, I know we had COVID going on, but how does this compare to prior years? Just
This year, there was a little bit more, there was just a little, last year was 26 confirmed, this year was 28
Okay.
confirmed.
And I know, I got some questions on there was a uptick in the spring, so does that account for the warm
Yes.
weather, or?
Yes, I guess I said, when I did the report, I said, well, at least we don't bully around the holidays.
Okay.
Thanksgiving and
Everybody's
Christmas.
nice to each other around the holidays, okay. But there's no, is that an annual thing that
It is.
ticks up? Okay.
It is.
Interesting. Okay.
No questions or concerns? Hearing none, we're going to vote on action item number 6 to approve the bullying compliance report. And Ms. Jones, your vote.
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. That passes 8-0. Moving on to action item number 7, a use of facilities, a cafeteria. Dr. Lawson?
Yes, this is an action item because there has been a request to waive fees, and that is an action that can only be taken by the board. I will read a letter that came with the request. Coffee County Board of Education, we are planning to have a benefit for Gary Mahaffey, who has leukemia, in the cafeteria at Coffee County Central High School on August 19th. If possible, I am requesting the fees be waived for this event. I appreciate your help in this matter. Jenny Davis. I don't know if we have, oh, there you go, Ms. Davis. If you would like to include any statements in that, Ms. Westmoreland will make sure your mic is turned on.
I'm going to start off with, I'm nervous.
Don't be
So,
nervous.
but thank you for your time. Thank you for even the other time that you put in besides tonight.
Mr. Mahaffey has worked for us, I'd say probably 6 months or so. A little over 3 months ago, he was diagnosed with leukemia. He is a subcontractor for us, so he has had a substantial loss of income with a lot of medical bills, and they're talking about another 3 months stay in the hospital at this time. And I didn't find that until after I have made this request, that we would like to do this benefit for him to help him. And I am requesting to waive the fees. Any questions?
Okay. So does this come with your recommendation, Dr. Lawson?
In this circumstance, I would recommend a waiver of the fees. I will call the board's attention to if we have used the general rule that if a school employee is a part of this process, then we can waive the custodial fees. If not, the custodial fees would apply because a school personnel does need to be present.
Okay.
Can I comment on that?
Please.
Okay, so because I had to get this in on such short notice to be on the agenda for tonight, I was not able to try to find an employee that would be there. I don't know if it's a possibility, that I could get that done before the benefit and that fee would be waived, or if we just need to pay for the janitors, and that's okay if we have to too.
What we could do, depending upon how the motion is worded by the board, whoever makes the motion could approve the fee waiver with the custodial fee contingent upon an employee being present. And so they can, obviously I yield to the board. I can't make that motion myself.
I understand.
And so, but whoever makes the motion can make the motion to waive the fees contingent upon an employee's presence. And if the employee is not present, the custodial fee will not be waived. Something to that effect.
Right.
But
Okay.
yes, ma'am, you don't have, unless the board decides, you don't have to have that person lined up tonight.
Thank you.
They would just have to be lined up before the event.
Well, depending upon how the board
Right.
makes the motion.
Okay. So you've heard the recommendation and the talk. We would like to open the floor for a motion.
So moved.
Move that we,
Go ahead.
Mr. Parsley got it first,
okay,
and you want the recommendation to be contingent upon
On
Yes.
getting an
the way
employee.
he.
Okay. So, all right, let me repeat this for the recording. I want to make sure, and you just confirm, you are recommending waiving all fees contingent upon an employee's presence.
Yes, sir.
If there is not an employee present, then the custodial, the custodian will be present and those fees will be paid. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think Ms. Davis agrees to that.
Yes,
The
That
motion,
does not include the insurance, though.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Insurance is not a fee. That's
Not a fee.
just a requirement.
yeah.
The
I'll make sure
insurance.
everybody knows that.
Yes.
Okay.
We do not waive insurance.
okay. So Mr. Parsley made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cordell had the second. Okay. Now any questions for?
How long do you anticipate this fundraiser? Are we talking 2 hours, 4 hours?
Maybe
Just-
4, I'm not sure, because we're gonna have to set up, we're gonna have to bring food in. We don't plan on using the actual, kitchen equipment. The rescue squad has volunteered to cook all the food for us. We
Wow,
will have to
that's
pay
nice.
for it.
Yeah.
But it's honestly humbles me that they would serve us in this manner. And so that is one thing that we've got worked out. And then, we would have to bring in the food. We've got the cleanup afterwards. Miss Ackland has requested us to get with her. She has some students that need to do some volunteer work. That would be wonderful for us and hopefully for those students as well. Mr. Mahaffey's daughter just graduated this last year. I don't know if anyone knows her or not.
So we are going to vote on action item number 7. Okay. And it's the use of facilities, as we've stated. Miss Rose.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. That passes 8-0. And good luck, and hope it all works out really well. And
Thank you, ma'am.
action item number 8, use of facility, CCHS Theater Coffee County Fair Board request to waive fees.
Yes, sir. A couple of months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, we had a very lengthy discussion about the Fair Board's use of our auditorium for the various fairs of the fair and other competitions. And ultimately it led to the board deciding to do so and waive fees. They have been opening their facilities for our programs who practice in the Raider Academy while our gym's out of commission there. They have made their areas available for wrestling practice and cheer practice and that kind of thing through the entire previous school year. We may even have to utilize some of that going into next year. And for that reason, all fees were waived as they requested to use our facilities. Now, however, when it came back to me that they would also like to practice there, technically those are different dates. So the board approved the actual competition, but the dates of practice were not included. And so there would not be an audience, my understanding, there's not an audience or anything like that, it's just the practice leading up to that particular event. Had it been the same thing, let's say that they, I can approve a facilities request based upon prior vote of the board. Well, this board voted to allow the competition, technically not to allow the practice. So it is now before you again, and so that's what you're seeing now. So we're talking about, it's already been approved for the event, it has not been approved for the practices. That's what this is, and it would be the waiving of fees contingent upon but there is Ms. Klaus, who is the chairman of the pageant committee. She is one of our teachers, and so her presence would take care of the employee being present and that kind of thing. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that I recommend the board approves this just like you approved the competition itself. I don't know, is there anything that I missed in that explanation that you would like to expand upon? Okay, so we do have representatives of the fair committee here if there's specific questions that I can't handle. I just wanted to give the introduction.
Okay.
I do recommend that we just go ahead and do the same arrangement with the practices that we have done with the competition.
Okay. You've heard the director's recommendation to approve the Coffee County Fair Board to use the theater for practices for the pageants is listed contingent upon a school employee being present. I'd like to entertain a
I so
motion.
move.
Mr.
Second.
Cordell, Miss Jennifer, any questions for these folks?
Lord love you for your patience tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to vote to approve item number 8. Mr. Crabtree.
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. That passes 8-0. Action item number 9, Safety Security Committee member. Dr. Lawson, you want to speak on this?
Yes, sir. This was something that came up in discussion in the spring retreat and has been a topic of discussion at other times. Now, the Safety and Security Committee has not traditionally had a board member. However, the board expressed a desire that there be a board member included. We would obviously like to expedite these meetings as much as possible as we move into the new year. So normally committee appointments are made at the September meeting. We kind of need to have meetings before September as we do this. So this is a little bit out of order, but we are requesting at this time that the board decide who's going to serve on that committee. So you can have a discussion. It would be just like when we make the committee assignments in September across the board. You can take volunteers or appointments or whatever, and then just vote to approve that person, and we can start to incorporate them into these meetings instead of waiting until the new appointments in September. So that's why it's on the July meeting, is because we need to have these meetings before then.
So the committee that we just need to have a motion to place a member on it.
We just need to know who does the board approve to be a part of the Safety and Security Committee? And that committee has existed, it's just not had a board member on it, but that was a desire expressed by the board, so we are trying to make sure we get that done. So I mean, I can recommend that you appoint somebody, I can't really recommend who you appoint.
First one that makes eye contact with me, I want to
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Ms. Jennifer Peacock Hodge for that committee.
Okay, we've had a nomination. Do we hear a
Well,
second?
thank you, Thomas.
A second, and Ms. Jones. All right. Any discussion, Ms. Hodge? Are you thrilled?
You know, I've got kids up in there, so I would love to know that they're safe. So go in and add me.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any more questions or concerns? All right, so we're gonna vote to approve Ms. Jennifer to the Safety Security Committee.
And please understand, as part of the discussion, this would need to be reaffirmed in September.
Okay.
As part of the normal committee assignments.
Mr. Cordell?
Aye.
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 Oh, I passed you up.
Am I supposed to vote?
She get to vote?
Do I
She
vote
gets
for
to
me?
vote.
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. You're in, just
All
barely,
right.
8-0.
Hope we don't regret this.
All right, action item number 10, the budget update. Dr. Lawson?
Obviously, I will yield to Ms. Melson on this one.
Through May, revenues are at 88.14% of budget compared to last year of 91.94% of budget. And then expenditures are at 79.47% of budget versus last year to date at 76.06%. I have really no updates. Nothing's really changed. Still trying to close the year and finalize June, but I would be glad to take any questions you guys have about this budget update.
Okay. This budget update comes with your recommendation, Dr. Lawson?
It does.
Okay, you've heard the director's recommendation to accept the budget update. I'd like to open the floor for a motion.
So moved.
Ms. Rose, and a second for Mr. Crabtree. Questions?
We're running a little over $1 million ahead of revenue over expenses, right, at this point?
So yes, but we have 2 months of expenditures still to come, and then well, I'm not saying 2 months, 2 months of payroll because we are behind on 1 month payroll. So we ran 2 payrolls in June, and then we still have 2 months of revenue as well. So yes, right now around $1 million, we're $1 million over
Okay.
expenditures.
Do we anticipate we're going to have to dip into the fund balance?
It's still too early to tell. I don't close out until usually around the end of August, but I should have a better update of what the year looks like in the next meeting.
Thank you.
More questions on the budget? Hearing none, Mr. Ballard, we're going to vote to approve the update. Your vote?
Oh, aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. That passes 8-0. Action item number 11, public comment approved by the executive committee. No one's,
The person who made the request is no longer with us.
okay. So we will check that off. Items for discussion. Mr. Cordell, you got anything else this evening?
No.
Mr. Crabtree?
No.
Ms. Rose?
I'd just like to say Raider Academy looks awesome. It is going to be a showplace when it's finished. And Mr. Shores, thank you for
Thank you.
everything you've done on
Thank
that.
you.
It's really a beautiful facility.
Ms. Jones? Jennifer?
I hope everyone's having a good summer. That's about it.
Mr. Parsley?
I just want to say and have it on the record here, if I'm not in attendance at a meeting, please do not put off a vote. Go ahead and vote. Okay.
Fair enough. Mr. Ballard?
I just wondered how Bonnaroo registration went.
Use me
Any
as an
problems? Go
excuse.
smoothly?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Parsley. If you want, when I was there, it was incredibly smooth, but I was only there a few times over that period of time, and only a matter of minutes each time I was there. So, but Mr. Parsley was there many days.
So when the Bonnaroo folks are using our high school facility, we generally sort of separate their area. We happen to have summer school going on during that time. We had our students enter through our bus loading zone each morning, leave through the bus loading zone, use a restroom over on that side of the building. We used our library for summer school. And so Bonnaroo utilized our gymnasium and our main commons area as well as our student parking lot. And I'll be honest, I went through there multiple times each day because I would be on various missions, you know, just maintenance going on in the building and things like that. And everything seemed to go really smoothly as far as I could tell, but honestly, I'm not really involved in the ins and outs of what they're doing. I did not observe anything of concern. Didn't have anything of concern reported to me either. I feel like things went fine. If there's a more specific question, I'll be glad to try to answer, but I'm just not very involved in it.
Yeah, when we had discussed it before, there were some concerns about,
Right.
you know,
Yes,
just security and stuff like that.
And I guess it was important to me that we sort of separate our students from, you know, the business they had going on, and we were able to do that, I thought, quite well. So that, if we were to have, you know, the same scenario next year, I feel like we can handle that.
Since you've got the hot mic, go ahead and give us an update.
Well, I guess one thing that we've got going on today, we've got our fall sports. Most of them have started practice today. Our mandatory dead period of 2 weeks is over throughout the state, and again, most fall sports started practice today. Our band also started camp today. That wasn't the entire band. My understanding is the percussion part of the band started today. I believe it was around 15 students, and they have a week going from about 8 to noon this week, and next week we will have the entire band for long days. And that's what the band does. I've got a lot of respect for, in particular, late in the summer, if you're leaving through the back part of campus, you see them out there in that bus loading zone on that pavement. And, you know, there's some hot days this time of year. And I think we've got a lot of excitement in our band right now. And, again, just they started today and things seem to be going well. Aside from that, I guess administratively, we are planning for next year. I've spent time today working on assigning new teacher mentors and things of that nature. Those are the types of things that I'm working on this time of year. We're also still hammering out our master schedule for the year with almost 90 teachers and about 1,350 students, 130 or so staff. It's a big puzzle, and I'm sure you all understand that. And so we're still working to hammer out assignments for this year, and that's normal this time of year. So, any questions?
Are your positions all filled?
No, ma'am. Unfortunately, and I won't say that it's unusual. It's really not. I still have one math position to fill. I still have our AFJ ROTC head instructor position to fill, and that just came open a couple of weeks ago unexpectedly. Our former instructor, personal situation, and he didn't anticipate leaving us, but didn't have really a lot of choice, and I understand why he needed to do that. So we're looking for an AFJ ROTC instructor. The Air Force works with us closely on that. In fact, they post the position nationwide, And so that's been done. And although it's possible that we will hire someone from this area, and I would love to do that, quite often when you hire an AFJ ROTC instructor, you'll get someone from another state because it's posted by the Air Force, for the Air Force, and so you will end up typically with a retired person from the Air Force. And then aside from that, I've got a school counselor position that is open, and it's actually we're sort of converting a position, and it's not a new position, but I had a student support services coordinator position, and what we're doing there, the person, it was Nicole Carney, so she performed several duties that our school counselors formerly performed, and so in order to I think better utilize our counselors and lower our ratio of student to counselor, we are going to hire a counselor for that position. Again, this person will be able to perform those duties that were performed formerly in the position, but also perform social and emotional counseling, which is a need for us. That still won't get us to the state's recommended ratio of 250 to 1, but it will get us much, much closer, and we are going to be able to do that. So we're looking to hire that position. That would be all the positions that I have, though. All right. Any questions?
I have one about the band. Does the band program start in middle school, or is it coordinated with the high school? Because the band is such a big thing at those football games, and our band needs support.
It does start with the middle school. Both the middle school and the high school. We'll do some recruitment activities, especially in the spring of each year. We'll go and visit the elementary schools, or this past year we had them come to us, and it was the 5th graders. And you're performing for them, recruiting for them, you're talking about the instruments. The kids are hearing the instruments and encouraging students to join band. They do that beginning in the 6th grade, and so our middle school and high school bands do try to work closely together. That's a good question. Other questions? And Dr. Cornelius, I don't remember the dates on that, but we have a faculty and alumni theater show coming up. I know it's in early to mid-August.
First 2 weekends of August.
So at the first 2 weekends of August, we will have faculty and alumni theater show, and it will be Mamma Mia. So we've got lots of our school faculty and staff, as well as some alumni from the school that will be performing in that.
That sounds fun.
All right.
That'll be fun. So you're going to send an announcement out?
We will. We will.
Great. Yeah.
Are you in it?
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not.
Are you? Are you?
I wish. I didn't know. I'd come.
Oh, come on.
I like to dance around on that stage. We can do it.
Mr. Shorter's daughter is one of the leads, and then Miss Pate is the adult lead. My assistant, she's the adult lead, and I'm one of the dads. And so
That's awesome.
fathers.
We all need to make sure we go to this.
Come see the play.
Are there any other questions for me?
Appreciate you. Miss Parsley, you want to? Gotta say something.
Of course, our students and our teachers have all been on vacation. I have had some contact me asking questions about their preparing their classrooms. I return to work day after tomorrow, and I will be setting up interviews for a music teacher. I need a music teacher, 2 special education assistants, and a part-time cafeteria worker. So I'll be setting up interviews for that. Otherwise, all my teacher positions are filled. So that's about what we've got going on.
Thank you. And I did want to say, I think that's all our principals. Prater Powell, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you stuck it out. And I would ask you for a grade, but I'm afraid to. So, but no, thanks for coming.
I would ask, if you don't mind, Dr. Nestor, we have, and Brent's sister-in-law, we have a board member that is in very critical condition at Vanderbilt Hospital, and we appreciate your prayers for her because it's just a touch-and-go situation as we understand it right now. That's Miss Susan Parsley.
Yeah, well, thank you. Keep us updated on that, so.
And since you're here, Dr. Powell, would he serve as we were on the Board of Distinction Committee meeting earlier. Could he use this could he evaluate us on our performance tonight and use that as one of the?
I don't know if we could or not.
Okay, I'm just wondering if.
What can I do?
If we were going to set for Board of Distinction, are you a level 2 or 3?
He served that role last time.
Yeah, and you were the one that did it the last time, so we may have you do that again for us.
Could he use
but we're-
tonight if we didn't have
Tonight's
time?
meeting or come back again?
Well, I don't know if we're going to qualify. We're going to have to look into one thing.
Tonight, but I'll be happy to, Dr. Nestor.
Okay, either way, whatever might work.
He could fill it out for tonight just fine. He's been here
Because he did stay for the entire meeting, so.
And then somebody else could do the next one.
You didn't know you were going to work tonight. But thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
I appreciate it.
All right, so committee reports.
Only committee that's met is the Director's Evaluation Committee, and we've discussed that in quite a bit of detail tonight.
Okay.
We will be trying to get together with the Policy Committee. We have several things that we need to go over, both new policies and review of older policies. We have not met that because the elementary principals have not been on the clock, but that is going to be changing. So we're going to be trying to set up a Policy Committee meeting tentatively on July 25th. But Ms. Westmoreland will be in communication with those board members to make sure that works and we can get that set up. But that's July 25th allows board members to attend summer law in Gatlinburg. There will be some of the things in the policy meeting that come on the heels of that. So the 25th, I believe, is the Tuesday after summer law. And that also puts all of our principals back on the clock after summer vacation, and we can do that. So that's what I'm going to report about the committees.
So that would be here at 4:30?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Board of Distinction did meet right before this meeting, and there are a couple of things that we have to evaluate, whether we're going to be able to get that done or not. Ms. Westmoreland's going to take the next step. Because a third of the members have to be level 2 or above, problem is we expanded the board, especially with 5 new board members, and so as a result, we only have 2 people out of 9 that are level 2 or above. We have two board members that are level 1, so going to have to evaluate whether they can make it to that level 2 status in order to be, because it has to be 1/3 of the board members. With our larger board composed mostly of brand new board members, that's going to be a little more difficult to reach. And so, but Ms. Westmoreland's going to reach out and get transcripts and that kind of thing, and we're going to evaluate that.
And then no student ambassadors, so you can go right into the director's report.
Director's report, what you've heard is pretty much my report. It is the new fiscal year, therefore we're turning our attention to the new school year coming up. The biggest topic of discussion is the budget. There was a meeting of Budget and Finance on Wednesday of last week. There were several things trimmed from the county budget that seemed to be positively received by the commissioners who were present that evening. Nothing was trimmed from the school budget. In all the meetings that either I have attended, Mr. Shores has attended, or Ms. Melson has attended, I think somebody's been present pretty much for every Budget and Finance or commission meeting for a while now. So far, I don't think at a single meeting our budget has come up as any kind of issue. But because it doesn't get passed, our budget doesn't get passed until the county budget does. So even though there's no problems with ours, we still technically do not have a budget. We are hoping, like I said, the positive reception to the cuts at last week's Budget and Finance Committee meeting. I'm hoping that I'm hoping that tomorrow night at the next meeting it passes. If it doesn't, Ms. Melson and I have already discussed an alternate plan, and so this will involve you guys. The alternate plan, if it doesn't pass, is we have to operate off the 22-23 budget. Ms. Melson's already checked with the comptroller's office. We can amend that budget to basically look like the proposed budget. So what will happen is, if it does not pass tomorrow night, I'm going to be reaching out to Dr. Nestor on Wednesday morning to see if he can convene a special called meeting of this body, possibly as early as Friday afternoon, to pass the budget amendments necessary to modify this past year's budget and allow us to go ahead and get started on the new year. So and then when the budget eventually does pass, then we can just slide right in and start utilizing that. But we would have to get budget amendments passed by this body and by the commission. And so, but if it passes tomorrow, that's a moot point and we won't need that. But I will be, as soon as I know something tomorrow, I will be trying to inform the board.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Shores.
Also, with the budget not being passed, we were going to have the fire alarm for the high school on this agenda, as well as the CTE shop was going to be on this agenda. But since it did not pass, we are having to postpone and put those onto the August agenda. So if you have any questions that come up that you're wondering about with the shop or the fire alarm, please get with me. I'll be glad to go over it with you and talk to you about it at your time. Okay?
Is it still as bad as you thought it was going to be?
Yes.
Okay.
Then as far as the ESSER update, we have tried to close out our ESSER 2 expenditures. Ms. Melson, do you want to speak as to just a brief thing? Because ESSER 2 ends this year. ESSER 3 is active one more year.
So all of ESSER 2 has been taken care of with the exception of one HVAC unit, and we will pay that out in August. And our deadline to do that is September 30, so there's no issues with the ESSER 2 budget.
So far, we will not have to return any ESSER money to the state, and thus the federal government. We've managed to use all that so far, and we are continuing to properly utilize ESSER 3. But that's the ESSER update.
Okay. So at this time, I do want to announce that our next, and we're going to start announcing each month our next school board meeting, just to kind of stay in compliance with some new rules, but to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to be doing properly. So our next school board meeting will be August the 14th, 2023 at 4:30 here at the Coffee County Board of Education. Summer Law is July 20th to the 22nd. And so hopefully see several of you there. And if we have to call a meeting, hopefully we will not. But if we do, we'll get in contact just as soon as we can. With that, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks for your service. Gary.